Have you ever like walked around a city and just kind of felt like there's a whole lot more going on beneath the surface?
Oh yeah, like a hidden history just waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. And that's what we're talking about today. It's Riobamba in Ecuador. We're going deep on this one, folks. A deep dive into the discovery of the original Spanish colonial city. It's it was found right under the modern city.
Yeah, it's incredible, like layers of time
Yeah.
right there. Just think about it, the foundations of a city that's what, centuries old,
Yeah.
and it's just now coming to light.
Yeah. So we're basing our deep dive today on a report. It's from Ecuador's National Institute of Cultural Heritage.
The INPC.
Yeah, the INPC. And they've been documenting all these amazing archaeological finds.
It's really remarkable work they're
Oh,
doing.
for sure. Okay, so let's set the stage here. We're talking 1534, Diego de Almagro, a
Yeah,
huge name in the early Spanish conquest.
right.
He decides this is the place. This is where we're going to establish Riobamba.
Makes sense. Prime location.
Right. Okay, so now fast forward a couple hundred years to 1797. I want you to imagine this. The ground is shaking. I mean, violently. It's a massive earthquake. It just rips through Ecuador's Interandean Valley.
Wow.
And get this, the epicenter is right where this early Riobamba stood.
Oh wow. So they built it right on top of a seismic hotspot.
Yeah, basically. And the INPC report, it really stresses how devastating this earthquake was. This wasn't just, a little tremor.
Right.
We're talking huge landslides that basically swallowed the entire settlement. I mean, gone.
Well, just wiped off the map.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that this wasn't like an isolated thing. Other cities and towns nearby, they were hit hard too. Places like Guaranda, Ambato, Latacunga.
So this was a regional catastrophe.
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
gives you an idea of just how powerful nature can be.
Yeah, especially back then when they didn't have the same kind of building codes and disaster preparedness that we do now.
Oh, totally. So it's just mind-blowing to think about a whole city just vanishing like that. But the story doesn't end there. The people of Riobamba, they rebuilt their city, they were resilient, but they picked a new spot about 14 kilometers away from the original site.
That's about 8.7 miles.
Yeah, 8.7 miles. And that brings us to today, where these urban regeneration projects led by the Culta Canton, they've kind of peeled back the layers of time.
And revealed this lost city.
Exactly. So as they're doing these modern developments, they're digging and they're finding all this stuff from that first Riobamba way back in the 16th century. And that's what's so cool about this. We're not just talking about, some stories in a history book.
Right.
This is like tangible evidence of a really important time period.
Yeah, I mean, this is physical proof.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk location. Where exactly was this first Riobamba?
Well, the INPC report is pretty clear on that. It was on the San Miguel Plains, which is actually still part of Riobamba today.
Okay, so it's like right there.
Right under their feet.
But there's also this connection to the history of the area before the Spanish arrived.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't like a blank slate when they got there.
Right. So what was there before?
Well, the thing is, this early Spanish city, it was really close to Riobamba. And Riobamba, that was the capital of the Puruha people.
Okay.
They were an indigenous group, and their capital, it was on the plains of San Antonio de Aguiscate. So basically, the Spanish, they set up shop right next door to this major indigenous center.
Wow. So they were practically neighbors.
Practically neighbors.
That's got to make you wonder about how they interacted. What was their relationship like, in those early years of colonization?
Oh, absolutely. It adds a whole new dimension to the story.
Totally. Okay, so back to the earthquake, the 1797 one. It sounds like it was the turning point.
Yeah, it was a game changer.
So based on what the IMPC found, can you give us a better idea of just how bad it was? Like what details really stand out?
Well, the report really emphasizes the force of this earthquake. I mean, they say the Riobamba area was the epicenter, but the real damage came from the landslides that followed. It wasn't just the ground shaking. Whole hillsides collapsed,
Oh, wow.
and they buried the settlement under tons of earth and debris. I mean, just imagine that. And this level of destruction, it wasn't limited to Riobamba. It affected a whole network of towns across the Interandean Valley.
So it was a widespread disaster.
Huge. It reshaped the entire region.
So they had to relocate the entire city. That's not a small decision.
No, not at all. Moving a whole city almost 9 miles,
Yeah.
that takes serious planning, resources. It takes everyone being on board.
Yeah.
I mean, this decision really shows us how traumatic this event was. They must have thought the original site was just too dangerous to live in.
Yeah. It makes you think about the power of nature to just completely change where people live.
It's a powerful force.
Okay, so centuries later, we have this chance to see what was lost. The INPC report, it talks about some really interesting things they found in the excavations. Everything from foundations of buildings to everyday objects and even parts of a convent.
Yeah, it's a real mix.
Can you tell us about some of these specific discoveries that make this lost city come to life?
Sure. One of the most interesting finds was this network of stone-built water canals. It shows us they were already working on building infrastructure and figuring out how to manage resources like water.
Makes sense. You need water to survive.
Exactly. Then there are these decorative architectural elements they found. Just fragments, really, but they give us a clue that even in those early days of colonization, they were trying to create a city with a certain look, something that reflected their culture.
So they were trying to make it feel like home.
In a way, yeah.
And then there are the more personal things.
Right, like the kitchen utensils,
Yeah.
things like cutlery, and even stoves.
Yeah, that's really cool. You know, when you think about it, it connects you to the people who actually lived there more than 200 years ago. I can almost imagine them, cooking their meals.
Yeah, it's those everyday objects that really bring the past to life. They help us see beyond the big historical events and focus on the lives of the people who called this city home. And then there's the discovery of this large cobbled courtyard. It was part of the Jesuit convent.
Okay, so there were Jesuits there.
Oh, yeah. The fact that there was a Jesuit convent tells us something about the religious and social structures that were important in colonial Riobamba. The Jesuits, they had a lot of influence back then, so this discovery gives us some insight into that part of early colonial life.
Well, that's interesting. And what about the stone quarry?
Oh, right. They found a quarry that they used to get stone during the initial construction phase. It's a great detail because it tells us about their building techniques and how they use local resources. They weren't just bringing European styles over. They were adapting to what they had available.
It shows they were resourceful.
Very much so. It gives us a ground-level perspective on how the city was built literally from the ground up.
That's fascinating. Okay, so when we take all of this into account, what can we learn about colonial life in Riobamba over 200 years ago?
Well, the INPC, they're pretty excited about what these artifacts can teach us. They say that these findings give us a unique window into this specific period of colonial history.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just about the big political and economic things that were happening. We can also learn about the everyday realities, the infrastructure, the social fabric of an early Spanish colonial city in this specific Andean region.
So it gives us a more complete picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're still analyzing these artifacts, so they think we'll get even more detailed insights in the future.
Okay, so let's recap. We started with this idea of a lost city hidden beneath a modern one.
Yeah, buried by time.
Right. We talked about how Diego de Almagro established it and how it was located right next to the pre-colonial capital of the Purja people.
Right.
Then came the massive earthquake of 1797, which forced them to relocate the city. And now all these archaeological discoveries, they're giving us a real connection to that past. The water canals, the architecture, the kitchenware, the Jesuit presence, even the source of their building materials.
It paints a vivid picture.
It does. It really brings that period to life.
I think that's the power of archaeology. It gives us this tangible link to a time that's long gone.
So the rediscovery of this first colonial Riobamba, it shows us the ambitions of those early European settlers in South America.
Yeah.
And it also shows us how powerful nature can be in shaping the history of a region.
Sometimes in unpredictable ways.
Yeah, okay, so here's something to think about. If an entire city could be lost and then rediscovered centuries later, what other hidden histories are out there? What stories are waiting to be uncovered?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Makes you wonder what else we might find, right?
It does. The story of Riobamba, it reminds us that history isn't just in textbooks, it's all around us. Sometimes it's right beneath our feet, just waiting to be discovered and to change how we see the world.
And that's our deep dive for today. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.